Welcome to What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Dream Machines of Texas, www.dreammachinesoftexas.com. All your used motorcycle wants and needs all in one place at www.dreammachinesoftexas.com. They have multiple locations with large inventory and get new bikes in every week. Knowledgeable staff with great service and financing and extended warranty options available. They also have a complete service garage, so every bike is gone through and brought up to speed before you hit the road. I have bought more than a few bikes from Dream Machines over the years, and I could not be more satisfied. I've also had friends from all over the country buy bikes from Dream Machines because they couldn't find a better deal anywhere. You can buy a bike and have it shipped to you anywhere in the U.S. Why buy a brand new bike with that brand new high price when you can get a like-new bike with that dream deal you've been looking for? Go to www.dreammachinesoftexas.com and get a bike and get your ass on the road. Hey, welcome to What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck, and today's episode, very exciting, we have fellow tattooer, longtime friend of mine, current owner of Classic Tattoo in Fullerton, California, Mr. Tim Hendricks. Tim Hendricks played a major part in me ending up on the show Ink Master. Just to give a little brief insight into that. Long story short, as they say, a buddy of mine named Permanent Mark, who gets none of the credit he's deserved, amazing guy. He did a show on Spike Television, traveling tattoo kind of show. It was mainly geared only towards tattooers. It was not a big hit amongst non-tattooers. It was basically, the concept was aimed directly at, specific things that tattooers would really be drawn to. It was a really good show. But after he did that show on Spike, he pitched the idea of a tattoo competition, much like Hell's Kitchen or Top Chef, but for tattooing. And Spike was interested, and they kind of went down the road a little bit. And then they decided not to do it, and they said no and left Permanent Mark in the rearview mirror. And a curious amount of time later, shortly after his contractual option ran out, I would say probably almost immediately after that option ran out, they decided they came up with their own great original idea to make a tattoo competition show. Mark had told me about this show and had said, hey, this would be a great show for you to be on. I really want you to be the judge. You're kind of the guy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Long story, short. I'm trying to make it a little short. But anyway, it didn't happen. And he goes, yeah, mate, they fucked off. They fucked me over, whatever. And then that was a great impersonation, by the way. That's exactly what he talks like. And anyway, so some time goes by, and I get a phone call about said show. And they describe it to me, and I'm like, oh, shit, yeah, man, the Permanent Mark show. And they're like, well, what's that? I'm like, oh, the guy in Permanent Mark, he's doing the show. And they're like, no, we don't know who that is. We don't have nothing to do with that. This is a new, brand new idea, brand new concept. We're making a show. And I was like, I heard about this show like a year ago, and we talked about it, and blah, blah, blah. And then it went away, and now y'all were saying it's brand new. And they're like, oh, we don't know what you're talking about, whatever. And so I kind of like called Mark. I was like, hey, man, I just got a call about being on this show with fucking Spike, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, those motherfuckers, they let my option run out. Now they're doing it without me. Basically, they just cut him out of the picture and did it on their own. That's how movie and TV work. But anyway, so I was like, yeah, it sounds like a pain in the ass. I'm busy. I travel. I got a tattoo shop. It doesn't seem very alluring to me. And I didn't take him up on the opportunity. And then they called again. And then I called Mark again. And he said, well, if if it happens, you should do it because it's perfect for you. And I was like, well, I don't know. It seems kind of whatever, And basically, in my mind, if they would just turn on a dime and fuck him over real quick, then what's to say they're not going to turn on a dime on me too? So I just wasn't really invested into the idea. But over a course of some months, I got many phone calls, and I was like, man, and I kind of just started like dodging these phone calls. And then I get a call from my buddy, Tim Hendricks, who had been on a television show. I had also had my brief interaction with Tattoo Television with Miami Inc., which was really horrific and terrible to be a part of. Just the whole production side and being on set and dealing with the cameras and the fakeness of the editing and all the stuff. It just turned me off. And I was like, Tattoo, I don't want to, whatever. But then my buddy Tim Hendricks calls and he says, hey, man, my buddy Craig Borders is a great dude. He works for this production company and he's trying to get a hold of you, talk to you about this TV show. And I said, oh, yeah. They've been calling me. And I kind of just like was whatever. And it seemed like, anytime I'd asked them a question to get some validation on what would happen if I did this, they're like, oh, don't worry about that. We just want to, they didn't want to answer my questions. They didn't want to talk about contracts or money or anything. They just wanted me to like jump on board and sign up. And I was just like, well, so Tim Hendricks is like my buddy Craig Borders. He's a great dude. He really wants to talk to you, blah, blah, blah. Will you at least have a phone conversation with my buddy Craig Borders? And I said, yeah, man, I will. And so I ended up getting on the phone with Craig, and Craig's a great guy. And you'll see how this story like comes full circle here in a second. Craig's a great guy. He's a really good, honest man. He answered my questions. And when he couldn't answer questions, like, man, that is not my department. I can't answer that question, but I can, do what I can. And he's the guy that convinced me to do the show. And he got the ball rolling, and then I ended up talking to other people and getting the things finalized. And it was a pretty drawn out story, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and I almost didn't do it. And then it was like at the last minute, the day before we started filming, I like left a vacation in Hawaii early and flew straight to New York to start doing it. And it boiled down, and there's a lot of funny stories in there that I'll probably tell at some later date. But so Craig Borders is the guy who got me on the show because Tim Hendricks is his friend, and he called Tim and said, hey, Oliver, blah, 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 and that's how things happen. And literally like week one of filming, they just fire Craig Borders and dump him out on the fucking curb and make the whole show without him, make the whole next 13 seasons without Craig Borders. That's how they do it. They utilize whatever they can get out of whoever they can get it out of. And they get all they can. As soon as they suck you dry, they just fucking toss you out like a fucking condom that didn't even get a load blown in it. But so thanks to Tim for making it happen, and sorry to Craig Borders. There was a lot of great people on the show that were great and made the show great, but there's also the TV and movie industry as a whole, which is just a bunch of soul-sucking people. That's what they do. But to keep it positive, like I always like to do, it was a great time. The last I heard, Craig's doing great. But anyway, my buddy Tim Hendricks, he's a guest today. And we're going to get to a pretty cool interview with him. And the interview is actually recorded inside Classic Tattoo, one of my favorite tattoo shops in the world. I worked there a lot in my younger formative years of tattooing. I worked under Eric Mosky, who owned Classic Tattoo. And he's kind of like the second mentor to me. And Classic Tattoo has a very special place in my heart. And it was cool to film the episode there. Quite possibly might need to be a second addition to the 10 minutes interview video because it goes long, so get ready. But we didn't get enough. We both had tattoos appointments, and we had to like stop just in time to break everything down and get ready to tattoo. So Get ready for that. Tim Hendricks coming up next. But first, I'm going to answer a few questions out of the Gmail. If you have any questions for me that you want to ask, and I answer them on the podcast, just email me any questions you have to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com. And I'll be looking forward to reading them. Do your best to not ask the same questions as everybody else. I.e. toothpick, red shoe, mustache questions. But if I answer your question on the podcast, we will send you a merch goodie pack. And also want to remind everybody to like, comment, and share any videos and the episodes, especially on the YouTube. Get on the YouTube and subscribe. We are announcing a contest for our subscribers. We're going to be giving away prizes to lucky subscribers, and you will not be eligible to win unless you subscribe. So clickety click. First question. Adrian Reader. Hello, my name is Adrian. I love watching Ink Master. Love watching you on the show, Ink Master. I could binge watch the whole show over and over. Well, you should. You should watch it just a million times because I get none of that residuals. But anyway, because it's reality TV and they don't share the wealth. Anyway, watch the show a bunch. It's a great show. Probably the greatest show. Probably 13 seasons of the greatest television ever filmed. Question is, I was wondering how you, Dave Navarro, and Chris Nunez met to set up the show and be judges. I love all that you do and wish you all the best. All right. Thank you, Adrian. Man, if the story was me, Chris and Dave got together and dreamed this idea up and started this show together, that would have been awesome, but that is not how it happened. I just gave you a little preamble of how I ended up getting on the show, which is kind of what led me into, this question coming up. It's kind of what drove down the road, and Tim Hendricks being the guest kind of just made sense. So, Adrian, I will start off by saying me and Chris Nunez have been friends for over 20 years. Probably close to 30 years. Chris Nunez used to live in Dallas. He tattooed on Main Street. I tattooed on Elm Street. We were friends. We tattooed each other. We traveled the country. We did conventions here and there together. And we hung out a lot in Dallas. There was a goth club in Dallas called The Church. And it was on Sunday nights. And all the goth people would wear all their black attire and go to the goth club, and they did play good music at the goth club. But me and Chris Nunez and a few other dudes would always put on Hawaiian shirts and go to the church, and it was great. And you try to pick up on goth chicks, which they had very little interest in being picked up on by the guys in Hawaiian shirts. But we had a great time, and it kind of became a thing for a little bit. But among many other things, we tattooed together and hung out together, and we're good friends for a long time. And then the Miami thing happened, and I was around when some of that happened. And then this show happened. Turns out we end up being on the show together, which was pretty cool. I had never met Dave before the show, so get to New York to start filming. That's when I first meet Dave, and I was excited because I love Jane's Addiction. And I thought Dave Navarro was badass. And as far as tattooing goes, he received a lot of criticism early on for not being a tattooer and being a judge on a tattoo competition show. And I've always very steadfastly stood behind him with the opinion that he's the host, which you gotta have. Every reality game show has to have a celebrity host. And I think Dave was the perfect celebrity host. And he's a celebrity host that knows about tattooing. He was getting tattooed long before I was getting tattooed. When I was in high school, he was traveling the world with Jane's Addiction, got tattooed by Hanky Panky in Amsterdam, got tattooed by Freddie Goretti in Los Angeles, got tattooed by Mark Mahoney, was friends with Jack Rudy long before I ever even knew who Jack Rudy was. Dave Navarro knew a lot more about tattooing long before I did. And he has a lot of great tattoos by a lot of great tattooers. Now, just like every other shitty punk rock kid or tattooer or whatever, his arms are littered with crappy tattoos, just like me. So everybody's like, well, he just has crappy tattoos all over him. Yeah, that's just because the ones you see on his arms. He's got great tattoos. He's got great friends that are great tattooers, and he's been doing it a long time. He knows about tattooing, and he's an artist himself. He's a musician. He's an artist. He's a painter. He was a great judge. He was a great host. And I think that he was an awesome addition to the show. I mean, they could have had some, they could have had some porn star on there, some shitty fucking pop star. They could have had some fucking, I don't know, some other shitty fucking game show host that knows nothing about tattooing trying to be on there, be cool. That, they could have had whatever. I think they got the best one. You look at the other tattoo shows with the celebrity hosts they have, and the current celebrity host of the new Ink Master. Give me a break. Dave Navarro turns out to be the best celebrity tattoo host in the history of time. So, way to go, Dave. I think that answers the question. Adrian Ritter, thank you so much. And we did have a lot of good times. We did have a lot of good times doing that show. And I think that me, Chris, and Dave, it wouldn't have been the same with any other three people. So, next question. This probably might be my last question for the day. And then we'll get into the interview. If I go long, then the Tim Hendricks thing is long. This whole thing's going to be, but you got time, right, guys? All right. David Cole says, my name is David Cole. You email, and at the top of the email it says your name. And then you say, my name. I love it. All right, David Cole. My name is David Cole. My question is, how did you get involved with Born Free Texas? Thanks for being a part of getting it here. It's a great show. Love the podcast. Born Free Texas is coming up soon. October 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, somewhere in that range right there. It's basically a whole 5 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, depending on how early you want to get there, how late you want to leave. But Born Free Texas, this will be Born Free Texas number 3. Number 1 was awesome. Number 2 was even better. And number 3 is going to be, as they say, off of the chain. Chainless. Totally chainless. So how I got involved is I've been going to Born Free California for many years. I was actually at the first Born Free Texas just by happenstance. I knew some of the people involved just barely, but we were at a tattoo convention in Long Beach, the Queen Mary, and we heard there was going to be a motorcycle show the same weekend in Long Beach. So we got up early the Saturday before the convention and jammed over there, and it was cool. And then years went on, and I think year 5, my band played the pre-party, and then years later we played it again. But Mike and Grant have put on Born Free. They're, great dudes, known them for a long time. I've been having a cheap thrills booth at Born Free California for many years. They wanted to expand and kind of do another event, another time of the year somewhere else in the country, and they thought Texas might be cool. So they hit up me and my buddy Randy, the one and only Chemical Randy from Chemical Candy Customs. And they said, hey guys, we were thinking about doing a Texas Born Free. You guys want to help out or be a part of it, or fucking help us scope out locations and find a good spot for it? And we were stoked, and we did. And we looked at a bunch of different spots, and we found this spot. And they're like, oh man, we found the spot. And we hit Mike Grant. We're like, dude, this is the spot. We found the spot. It's going to be great. And turns out the spot is now Yellow Rose Canyon. And it is the perfect spot. It's a great spot. It's good times. Camp, ride your motorcycle, ride your mini bike, ride your dirt bike, ride your 4-wheeler, ride your golf cart, camp out, RV sites, dirt drag, circle track, bands playing, cookout. It's just nonstop, days and days of nonstop awesomeness in the great state of Texas. So Born Free Texas coming up soon. If you don't know about it, check it out. If you've heard about it and haven't been yet, come on with it. And if you've been before, you'll probably most definitely be back. And I'm very grateful to have any kind of part to do with any kind of fun times with the Mike and Grant. And it is a lot of work putting on large scale events like that. I am not the guy that does most of the work. But I witness people doing like a lot of long, painstaking work. Audra and Sean and Mike and Grant, everybody. It takes months and months and months to put on a big event like this. So I hope to see y'all on, guys, at Yellow Rose Canyon this October for Born Free Texas 3. All right, David Cole, thanks for your question. And guys, we will answer more questions next time. So email them on over to the What in the Duck podcast at gmail.com. And let's get right to it. We're going to like blip out of here and pop right over to Classic Tattoo for the 10 minutes video. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Anchor Screen Printing. Anchor Screen Printing has been printing t-shirts and merch products since 1999. Anchor is the place for quality, small run items. At Anchor, every print is hand done by people who care about art. No mass-produced machine-operated printing done here. You can email Anchor at anchorcustoms@gmail.com to talk about getting something printed for your company, brand, or shop. Anchor Screen Printing also has its own online merch store that sells Elm Street Tattoo, Cheap Thrills, Heart in Hand, Party First Safety Maybe merch, and much more. You can check it all out now at anchorscreenprinting.com. All orders at anchorscreenprinting.com over $35 have quick and free shipping in the continental U.S. So go to anchorscreenprinting.com today and buy some cool shit. Or you can click the link provided in this podcast to shop now. All right, welcome to What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck, and today I'm in one of my favorite places on earth. That's right, Classic Tattoo in Fullerton, California. I'm here with the current steward, owner, tattooer, Tim Hendricks.
What's up, Oliver?
What's up, buddy?
It's one of my favorite places in the world, too.
Yeah, I talk about this place a lot. I just talked about Classic Tattoo with Tom Mosier. We consider for my growing up in tattooing, this is where it really jettisoned. I took off in my tattoo career in Dallas and I had a great start with a great mentor. And then I got introduced to some people from all around the world that came to visit. And one of the first people that really made an impact on me from traveling as a traveling tattooer was Eric Mosky.
Yeah.
Came to town. I got tattooed by him. I met him. He invited me to come to California. At the time, he didn't own the shop. Charlie owned the shop. And I came out and worked here. First place I ever worked in California. And it just blew my mind.
Yeah. It looked different then.
Yeah, it did. But it was still a magical place. And Eric's corner looked the same.
Yes. And we've actually kept it. John has meticulously kept it exactly the way it is. He even he'll sit and he'll dust everything and move each piece and dust it and put it back where it is. And so that corner right there has stayed the same, even with the stickers.
I love it. And so I really got a really lucky opportunity to be at this shop in a young point in my career. And back in Dallas, I was trying to do traditional tattoos.
Yeah.
And, I was doing whatever tattoo walked in the door, but if somebody would let me, I would get an old piece of flash and do it. But I came out here and that's what people were asking for in the door. They were picking, I think pretty sure, if my memory is foggy, but the first tattoo I did here was a walk-in and somebody just walked in and picked an eagle and got it on their chest. And I'm just like, this is like,
dude, people still do
this
that
is the
here.
stuff that I beg people to get at home. And the first guy walks in, I want this eagle. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah, dude, people still do that here. I'll walk up and I'll see some badass like snake and dagger or something that Miles is doing. And
they just walked in.
Yeah, I'll say, I'll talk to them and I'll find out, they just walked in and got this, big traditional piece. Some people walk in and they still pick things off the walls. Yeah, your old flashes.
Well,
still up on the walls.
Eric really bred this community for classic tattoo to people get classic tattoos.
Yes.
You know, and it
Yeah.
was and then Eric ended up, you know, taking over the shop from Charlie and remodeling and giving it this kind of tone.
Yeah.
You know, and then you expanded on that.
I mean, I've kept it pretty much the same.
You just
People come
added
in and
more.
they're like, what's different? They'll still, I mean, now I've pushed out the front so far that they realize like, oh, okay, you know,
Yeah.
now I get it. The front's pushed out, but originally I pushed it out to right behind me here. And that was the front behind you over there. And it was like the world's biggest lobby,
Dude,
with 5 tattoo stations.
I mean, literally the lobby was previously
You could have a pool hall in the
three
lobby.
times the size
Yes.
of the tattoo area.
Yeah.
So
it was too big. So I pushed it out, and then I recently pushed it out again a little bit. And the lobby is still a good sized lobby. We don't have a problem.
it's still bigger than Elm Street's lobby.
Yeah, totally. So we don't have a problem with congestion in the lobby. But you know, there was 7 stations. I pushed it out and turned 5 into 7 stations. And my last apprentice, Isaac, and then Miles had put in, you know, a good amount of time. And it was like, you know, we just need more stations. We got to the point where people had to make sure that there was a station available if they were just going to come in on their day off and tattoo. Because
That's how Elm Street is.
Yeah, there might not be a station available. So, excuse me. So we pushed it out again, and now it's perfect. But then Javi and Natasha moved back from New York.
And now you're jammed
And,
back.
Yeah, we're kind of like, wow, we're packed again. But you know what? It's still just right. We haven't had a problem where someone will come in and not have a place to tattoo, and that happened before. So we haven't had that since, and it's nice. I mean, it's perfect, man. I grew up. I grew up. I don't know if you know this. I grew up like 2-3 miles from here in Fullerton. And I used to pass by this place when I was a kid and see all the cool cars out front, motorcycles, tattoos. Charlie had those, you know, webs on his elbow, and everyone just looked so fucking cool.
And lots of turquoise jewelry.
Lots of turquoise jewelry, yeah. This place just was so cool, and everyone looked so cool out front. And I came in and I got some neighborhood tats, you know, homemade stuff when I was young, 15, I think, 15, 16. So my mom tells me. But I got my first professional tattoo right here. I got it right over there from Big Frank, and I forgot my ID. And to be honest, I don't even know if I was old enough, but I had tattoos already. So he was like,
"Fuck it,
you already got tattoos, you know." And he tattooed me, and it was a cool experience. And I was like, man, I finally got tattooed in this shop, you know. But I never got to work. I did my first tattoo here as the owner. And that was kind of wild. I remember tripping like halfway through the tattoo. I'm like, wow, this is my first tattoo I did here. As you know what I mean? And I was the owner of the place. But I honestly don't feel like the owner. I feel like I'm the caretaker for now.
The current steward.
The current steward, yeah. And I'll make sure that, if anything happens to me or when it does happen, that it'll go to the right person and it will get taken care of, and the memories and the flash and everything will be preserved, because I think that's important, because that almost didn't happen.
Well, there's not a lot of tattoo shops that are open right now that have a lineage like that have been multi-generational, shops that have, there are some for sure.
Good Time Charlie's.
There are some for sure. Well, Good Time Charlie is still there. He's still there. He's still alive.
Yeah.
That's not the lineage. It's still generation 1.
Yeah.
This has been passed down and turned over and kept alive. The spirit's been kept alive by the next person.
Yeah.
So somebody's going to do that, and that's, and I gotta say, man, I had a hand in this shop over the years, and
I know you did.
I so couldn't be happier with the fact that you are the person in charge of this shop.
Well, thank you, man. It means a lot. It means a lot to me.
There was a few people that it made sense for, obviously for different reasons. Few people that could have come in here and taken this place over and run it and done it with care, but the other people didn't or couldn't.
Yeah,
and it also needed, at the time when you took over the shop needed more than just an open sign.
Oh my God!
This shop needed a reason.
Yeah.
This shop needed Tim Hendricks to come in here and bring what you have.
Well, thank you.
To add to this. Somebody else could have taken it over.
I'll be honest, bro. It needed a lot of the bank's money.
I know that. I know that.
But fortunately,
money wasn't the only solution.
Money was definitely not the only solution. But it had to happen to bring it. It's like this shop to me is like the Black Pearl. Just this boat that it's just the most amazing thing, the most amazing pirate ship. But it was kind of sunk.
Oh yeah,
at the time, and
it was taking on water.
It needed so much work.
It was taking on water,
dude. It was pretty low. I mean, there was days and days and days where the guy said that like no one even walked in through the door.
Well, that's because the reliability had been lost.
Yeah,
once something kind of starts to go down.
Yeah,
and because there was years where people would come to the door and the tattooers weren't here, and how many more times are you going to keep doing that?
Yeah.
That's why I
mean, she locked the place when Dave's, sister got it after Dave passed. Before I even got to buy it, she locked the place for a month. She locked all their tattoo gear in here. So people just thought it was closed. They were just like, it would have been easier for me to just open my own place, like a brand new
But it wouldn't have been
shop.
as special.
It wouldn't have been special. And there was a point, I remember my wife was like, hey, because I was just losing my hair over it. It was like 9 months of dealing with Dave. And, in hindsight, I realized that he was kind of losing his mind too, because he'd fallen off the wagon and he was having a lot of organ failure and things. And there was toxins in his system that were causing him.
He was having the early onset dementia.
Totally. So I in hindsight, I realized that now, but I didn't realize it during the time. I was like, I was losing my mind,
Because one day he'd be ready to sell. And
one day he'd be ready.
And the next day he's like, who is this Tim Hendricks guy?
Totally.
I'm like, Dave, we talked about this.
I've known you for years. You've been calling me for advice on this place for the last 8 years. So when I got the play, or when my wife at one point, she was like, hey, is this worth it? Like, this is really giving you a lot of stress. It's going to cost a lot of money. And I just told her, I said, hey, you just gotta, it's just a special place. You just got to trust me on this. And she's like, okay. And she did. But man, when I got it and we first opened the doors back up after a month, and she just shut it down, and we walked through, and, I just had my firstborn kid, and she was holding the baby, and she was looking around, and she just, she's not a tattooer, but she could feel it. Just the magic in the place. And she walked in and she looked at me and she was like, okay, I get it now. She just immediately got it, and you can't walk into this place and
I got chills thinking about it.
Yeah, you can't walk in this place and not understand the energy that's in here. I mean, we had to walk in the other day, and this girl, this is just from Yelp reviews, but this girl, she went a mile, she traveled, an hour, I think an hour and 15, hour and a half on the bus to get tattooed.
And she passed 1,000 tattoo shops.
1,000 tattoo
shops. On the way here.
And she came in and she got tattooed. I didn't know this until she left, and Miles goes, you know what her story is? And he told me, I said, go get her. Go chase her down. And he went and he got her. He said, the owner wants to talk to you. And she came in kind of confused. And I said, did you really travel over an hour to get here for your first tattoo? And she's like, yeah, I did. And I'm like, do you want a t-shirt? Can I at least give you a t-shirt? And she picked her own shirt and she was stoked and she left. But that's a special moment for her. She just left, and she came in and got her first tattoo in here and left a tiny bit of more magic in the place and left with some as well. You know what I mean? And man, I love that shit. That shit makes my day.
Well, like I was saying, somebody else with a shit ton of money could have come in here and opened the fucking shop and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And
people tried to.
It would have just been the same shop as every other shop down the street.
Yeah.
Because they weren't connected. They didn't know.
Yeah.
And it took something more than just money.
And it wasn't my money. It was the bank's money. So whatever. It took me, I'm not kidding you, man. It took 7 to 8 years before I got to pay back all those loans and before I even turned a profit.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. And fortunately, the bank trusts me.
I mean, the glory,
nowadays,
everybody thinks the glory of tattooing is that you're just gonna, you're making money the day you open a business, and
no.
Come on, man.
No, it takes so long. And then you know what? There's sometimes where you just break even, and that's okay. You know, it's like, that's fine.
I mean, I owned a shop in Hollywood for 9 years.
No, I know.
And I purposely do not want to go through the numbers to find out if I broke even or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of months that it didn't.
Yeah, but you know what? You kept it going as long as you possibly could, and you kept an establishment that provided a place where people made money and put food on their tables and fed their families and fed themselves for a really good amount of time.
Which is
and
why
I think there's a lot of nobility in that.
Which is why it stayed open, is because it was a job for people.
Yeah.
And people think that I own the shop, so I'm making a bunch of money. That Hollywood is expensive.
It's crazy expensive. I don't know how shops stay open in Hollywood. I mean, I've heard of some spots that have like 14, 15 grand a month rents.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
I'm glad to be out.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be out of it. I just drove by True Tattoos location on...
What is it now?
It's a weed shop.
No way. I bet they're making money.
Selling weed.
They got no problem with a 15 grand rent.
even the next door, the Velvet Margarita, it's gone.
I know. I remember
everything
about
on that street is gone.
Yeah. They pushed everybody out.
COVID wiped everybody out.
I know.
In that area.
Yeah. It did it here in Fullerton, but you know what? Fullerton was really kind. Like the city of Fullerton, everyone, just anyone that's a city worker, a service worker, like to be of service to the city, they really made it kind of like easy to us. They really took care of their city. They were like, oh, okay, they're saying we have to eat outdoors. Let's block off this street, and every restaurant just put all their seats outdoors. They left it that way. They permanently
Still
left
like
it.
that.
Yeah, because it worked out to be such a neat thing, and everyone loved it. And it's still like you can eat inside or you can eat outside. So I got really lucky here in Orange County and being in Fullerton, because LA fell on some hard times out there for COVID. And so I felt very blessed to be where I'm at and the city that I'm in, and to also know a lot of the people in my community. I tattoo, the city police, I tattoo code enforcement, I tattoo people who, work with the homeless and shelters. I tattoo like a lot of people in the city, and everyone was really good to us and everyone in here, So there was some places that closed down that I was pretty bummed about in the city, but I think they were on the verge anyways.
Yeah.
And this just kind of pushed them over.
I mean, when you're teetering, it's easy. It's easy to get pushed over the edge, and a lot of places are struggling for too long.
Yeah.
California, I mean, can't just say California, because it's certain parts in California, like LA, especially San Francisco, especially, they make it hard to be in business.
I know.
And for me with True Tattoo, it was hard to be in business in 2019.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So therefore, as soon as 2020 hits, it's impossible to be in business now.
They were so hard on LA. And if you tattooed, man, Mayor Garcetti said snitches get rewards. Those were his words. Snitches get rewards. How are you going to try to bring a community together by making them all snitch on each other and run around and, tattletale? It wasn't a proper way, I think, to manage what was going on. But that's my opinion. That's all.
Yeah. Well, you were lucky to be in here behind the orange curtain, because it was nice.
Orange County is great. I love Orange County. Man.
I was just talking with Mosier about the whole thing. It went down, and there was a certain point when the close down had gone too long, and he finally, him and some people, put a lawsuit out and got the shops reopened.
They did. He did a lot of work, man. Tom really was influential in helping a lot of tattooing. And, he probably helped people that are his competition, but he did it for the greater cause rather than just,
But he's pretty, I try to get him to give me more information, but he's pretty humble about it.
Yeah.
But there was a point when, the state was issuing these mandates or recommendations or rules or regulations or laws or whatever they were trying to call them. And I remember that the Orange County Sheriff's Department had a press conference, and they said
we're not
enforcing these things.
Yeah.
And so it was just like that eye-opening moment that like LA was enforcing.
Yeah.
20 minutes away, dude. 20 minutes.
It just got
30
so,
minutes.
Dude, it got so weird, bro, because you had such extremes on both sides. You know, you had some people that were calling the police. I'm not kidding you. This is true. They were calling the police because someone was exercising in the park without a mask on. But then you had people going to grocery stores to purposely not wear a mask and cough on people in their face and show them, you know what I mean? This is the way I am.
never did that. No way.
No, I know. So there was these people that were so extreme.
Maybe I did do that.
But it's like, I was just kind of right down the middle. I was like, I even had a sign on the door, you know? I just had a sign on the door that said, you know, after they lifted it or whatever, I was just like, hey man, if you like to wear a mask, feel free. And if you don't, that's cool too. Just be nice to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, just fucking, it doesn't have to be this struggle. So I just was kind of like, hey, I'm just kind of being cool about everything. But you can't please everyone, man. That's just kind of life. It was a big life lesson on like, hey man, you can't please everybody. And you know, you just gotta kind of just accept, be a little bit more accepting, understanding. And I think people had a hard time with that. So I don't know. Again, this is just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, back to the history of just getting Orange County tattooing and Southern California in general, and you growing up here and getting your tattoo start here. I know that, I know a lot about you. I might not know it all, but I know that you had, there's a lot of time in your life that if this opportunity arose, you would not have been able to do it.
Oh yeah, no way.
You know what I mean? So the fact that this came along at the time when you were able to do it, and this
I mean, you can say it. I was a fucking disaster for most of my tattoo career. I mean, I kept, so I was very functional.
Yeah.
I was a very functional.
I just want to say disaster might be a harsh term.
No, yeah, maybe it's a harsh term, but there's no doubt about it. And I don't mind saying this because I've said it in other podcasts and I've talked to my kids about it because they're going to find out anyways. And I'd rather them to hear things from me and not, out in the open. But I was an addict alcoholic. So I was an addict and alcoholic for the first part of my tattoo career, which actually I've been sober now for 15 years. I just hit 15-year mark, which is a huge, thank you. It's a huge accomplishment for me. Like when I have my birthday, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, who cares?
But I care more about my sober date because I had to earn that. So that's pretty good. 15 years is pretty good. That's actually half my tattoo career, or a little less than half my tattoo career. But the first part, I was a very functional, partier though.
Yeah.
So I still made it to work on time.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
There was a point.
I still paid all my bills.
Yeah.
I wasn't sleeping out of my car, doing drugs in a Chevron bathroom with my strung out girlfriend screaming, banging on the door. I didn't have those moments. I was, living the life.
Yeah.
I was living the dream. But I was I got to a point where I was totally just spiritually, emotionally, and mentally bankrupt.
Yeah.
And I was going to die, physically probably. And then I met someone that I cared about more than myself for the first time in a very long, long time. And so it gave me the motivation to get sober. And people say well, that's for the wrong reason and to stay sober. Well, I stayed sober for me because I got sober, because I cared about Liz, so much. And I cared about wanting to be around, I just met the woman of my dreams. So I got sober for that, but then I stayed sober because it was, I was doing it for me after a while. So wow, this is great. This is such a better life. I wasn't very happy for the first year. It was really rough to learn how to live life again because, all my inspiration, all my, motivation, all that stuff came from that outlet. And then I had to turn things around and kind of be like, okay, I got to find inspiration from other things. I got to find motivation from other things. And I did. And I'll be honest, man, I can't get to certain places, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and artistically sober that I could when I was on drugs. And that is an attraction of drugs, but I can get
hitting the nitro button.
Yeah, but I can get to so many places, so many better places, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and artistically sober now that I couldn't get to when I was loaded. It's such a better path for me personally. And so, yeah, so Classic came along right at the time, at the perfect time when I got some time in.
You were settled in here. You were thinking about opening the shop.
My credit was good again. Saltwater Tattoo was doing better. I was putting a lot of time into that. I was more reliable, responsible. I was, I can't imagine owning a shop the way I was before. I would have just went into the safe every night and been like, I'm just going to take a few drops here. No one's going to miss them and go down to Santa Ana or something. But it's, it did happen at the right time. It was perfect timing. I can't even say the right time. The timing was absolutely perfect.
Yeah. It couldn't have, it was sad circumstances for me, just because, the way that everything went down with Dave passing, and
of course,
and previously Eric passing. And I had a lot of,
you and Eric were very close,
and I was running the shop for Eric the last couple of years of his life.
Yeah.
And, which was an insane, when I explained to people kind of what was going on at that time, people were like, you were doing what? I was like, I was here 2 weeks a month for years. Yeah. I was 2 weeks a month here and 2 weeks a month in Elm Street for years. And then Eric passed away, and I continued that for a short amount of time, but dealing with Eric's family was hard.
Yeah.
Because they were fighting amongst each other.
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle trying to run the shop, and I had to bow out. And that's when I just went and worked at True.
Yeah.
And I already had so much clientele built in California that I had to stay working here at some. So I was working at True couple weeks a month, and still helping Dave on his side of the fence.
Yeah.
Because Dave was fighting with the other family, and I was just trying to help. And then we started the negotiations of getting you to take it over, because he was obviously going down. But it was emotionally hard to deal with the idea. And Dave was like, I wish you would buy it. And I was like, dude, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't fucking do it. I need to spend more time in Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't even want
to, if somebody offered me a shop that's an hour away from here, I don't think I'd buy it. I don't even want to drive an hour.
Yeah.
Let alone fly a whole nother state away to a shop. So, I'll be honest, man, there was a lot of pressure. Like, it was a lot of pressure after I bought this place. Not only because
if you fail, you're letting me down, bro.
Yeah, a whole generation of tattooers down.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of pressure on that aspect. There was a lot of pressure because I knew how important this place is, or at least I feel that way, and I know that lots of others. So I knew how important it was to so many people. And then I also knew that I was going to be critiqued for everything that I did the whole way, because people loved Eric.
Yeah.
And they might have their opinion of like, well, that's not the way he would have done it, or that's not this, or that's not that, and I'm like, I'm doing it the best way that I know how to keep a shop going, and that's why I would always call you. And you and Chummy, and Freddie Corbin were definitely, three of a handful of my go-tos to be like, what do you think?
Yeah.
And I mean, when I pushed out the front, that was the first thing he said. He's all, Eric always complained about how there was too much lobby.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that makes me feel better about pushing out the front, But it's one of the things that needs to happen too, to keep the shop running, just on the business aspect of inflation and rent going up. It goes up a certain percentage every single year. And just keeping things going with life and with everything, it needed more people tattooing, So, and
well, speaking of more people tattooing, you got a great crew here,
dude. I have such a good crew. I can't even believe the crew that I have. Everybody gets along. Everyone's so nice, and they all are hardworking. They're all good people, They just are like, they're good husbands to their wives. They're good, boyfriends to their girlfriends, they're good fathers to their kids. They all put out badass tattoos. There's not a single person in here that I feel is a weak link. Everyone can put out a badass tattoo, and they're all nice to people.
And that's why people travel out of the way to come here.
That is why.
And
that is
and
why.
you have that even with new people that don't know about the history.
Yes.
But you still have the old people with the history.
But you know what? They learn about it and
Yeah.
they hear about it. And I'll be right here and we'll be talking. And let's say Jose is tattooing at his station and I'm talking to one of his clients and we're talking to, they're just really stoked on the Flash and they'll mention it. And then it gets the conversation going. And I start talking to them and I stand up, with my machine in hand. I go, look at that. These are from the 1930s right here. These are from the late 1940s. And then I tell them, I was like, that one behind you right there, you see that one? And they turn around, and they look at that one. It's the one behind Audra right there, the beat up one.
Yeah.
Freddie Corbin gave me that one. And that one is from a sailing port, an English sailing port in Sri Lanka during World War I. That's an over 100-year-old sheet of Flash right there.
Pretty cool.
That's cool. And they look at it, and I can tell they look at it so much differently now that they got a little history lesson on it. And then,
why would you have this torn up piece of paper in a frame?
Totally, because it looks like it's about to fall apart. Dude. It's so brittle. I don't even want to touch it. I'm like, that's what happened with the Owen Jensen. We thought that was photocopied because all the Dave, all those ones, he would photocopy an 11 by 14 and he'd sell it to pay the rent because he didn't tattoo, so there wasn't that extra income for him. And
he also sold a bunch of them to pay the lawyer fee.
He did and they went to a good home, but all the Leroy's. But so when we pulled the Owen Jensen out, I thought it was a photocopy. We all did, and then a little tip of the corner broke off.
Probably didn't have a ladder high enough to grab that one.
That's what it is, dude. He probably would have fell and broke his hip. So I looked at them all. This is an original, and everybody crowded around. I remember the moment, and we all looked at it. I'm like, wow. And I put it back in carefully, cleaned the glass, and I put it back up. But I've had everything in here. I had my friend, she came in, she would come in early. I gave her the key and she scanned every single piece in here. There's some pieces that I've gotten new since then, that aren't scanned yet. But like 90% of everything in here is scanned in because, man, what if my neighbor decides to fucking leave a hairdryer going or something and burns the entire establishment down and we lose all of this? At least there'll be some record.
I didn't think about that.
So I know I hate thinking about this stuff, but it's like, I'm one of those, plan A, plan B, plan C guys. So I planned for it and I got it on a hard drive and I have that hard drive, in an extra one in a waterproof, fireproof safe in my garage. And I have, You
hear that, Court? Back up. Back up the hard drive.
Back up. Yeah. Little inside joke. But there was a lot of pressure to keep this place classic tattoo and to keep it, what Eric would have, looked at and been like, hey, this is cool. This place is still going. I'm stoked to see it still going. And, I'm never going to be Eric Mosky, and that's fine. I'm Tim Hendricks. And that's one of the things people are like, why didn't you call it Tim Hendricks Classic Tattoo? And I'm like, well, why doesn't Jack Rudy call it Jack Rudy's, Tattoo Land? It's Good Time Charlie's, After, it doesn't take anything away from Jack. Jack's Jack. Jack will always be Jack. And Charlie will always be Charlie. These are the greats. But so when we were sitting down, when Dave was I think I met him at the bar at like 10 a.m. and he was drinking and we were talking about the shop sale and he said, at one point he said, so what are you going to call it? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I going to call it? And he goes, well, are you going to still name it Classic Tattoo? Are you going to Tim Hendricks Classic Tattoo? Are you going to change the name? And I'm like, no, I planned on keeping it Eric Mosky's Classic Tattoo. And he was like, I said, if that's okay with you, if you don't want me to. And he's all, no, you do that? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I do that. It's your it's your son's name. And I'm like, I mean, I would love to be able to put that up there, and that was the only time I've ever seen Dave get emotional. Yeah. Because that man was a tough old man. He was. And he didn't really get emotional too much. That was the only time I ever saw him get emotional. And he just kind of bowed his head and I could see he had crocodile tears. And I just kind of was like, oh, this is awkward. And I just kind of gave him a moment. You know what I mean? I mean, I get emotional all the time, dude. I'm sober and I got kids. It's just my whole MO now, dude. I didn't used to be. I actually have feelings now. but he got emotional, and so I gave him a moment, and I just kind of changed the subject, and so I kept it Eric Mossey's classic tattoo. And when I broke the neon by accident, I had to get it made exactly the same way, and it was actually a blessing in disguise. I found this neon guy, and it was actually really cool. He's this old Chinese dude, and he is the neon guy in LA. Like, he makes neon for everyone. If you buy neon from someone else, that dude probably made it. And he took me in his factory and he showed me how it's all done. I don't know why, he just liked me and wanted to show me all this stuff. And it was kind of like being brought in here and being shown all this in the history. Dude, all these old Chinese dudes, and these are all my old friends from my village in China. We all came here together. And so he like pulled all his friends over. They all immigrated and worked for him. And he just took care of all his old friends in his village. And they all make neon. And so I had the sign made, and I said, can you make it, I wanted to say Eric Moskey's classic tattoo. And so we had that made. And it's crazy, man, because he came and looked at everything, and he was like, it's a miracle this place didn't burn down from the neon. Oh, so we had exposed wires. Yeah. And inside, up above it, and that whole section up there, that's like a whole little attic room. So he showed me in his shop. He goes, here, come here. And he like tapped the things with this wood thing closer together, and there's electric shock, because this is like 11,000 volts. It just shot across. It looked like a Tesla coil, and it just and he moved it across. And he goes, your old neon, it doesn't have
insulated wire.
Well, it doesn't have fail-safe things where if that happens, everything shuts off. So, and when I looked up there, the whole place was dusty. And these wires were like closer than the wires that he showed me that had jumped. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, this was a blessing in disguise. If I wouldn't have broken that neon, it probably would have burned the fucking place down. So I'm kind of glad that happened. But now it says Eric Moskey's classic tattoo.
Very cool.
Yeah. And it'll always be called Eric Moskey's classic tattoo. I mean, hey, when I'm gone, maybe somebody else will do something with it. Who knows?
Who knows?
But for as long as I'm around and I steer this ship, that's what it'll be. That's what it'll be called.
Well, other than Eric's funeral, the only time I saw Dave, break down a little bit is I had Dave tattoo the word Moskey.
Oh, no way. I have photos of that. So we have photos of that.
So I had Eric's dad tattoo the word Moskey right there. And he got all nervous. He's like, I don't think I can do it. I was like, quit being a fucking pussy. And then he got all bucked up. And then he was halfway through and he was like crying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no crying and tattooing. At least not by the tattooer.
Yeah.
The person getting tattooed is supposed to be crying,
Yeah.
So it ended up being funny. But I think Troller was here when that happened.
Yeah.
So Troller's probably the one that took the photos.
He did. Yeah. And we have him here we have him on the hard drive here. I got him on the backup at home though. I did get emotional in here when I finally got to place, because, we thought we'd lost it. It was over. And this other guy, he got it.
Well, he made a deal with Mimi.
Yes, he made a deal with Mimi, but then he didn't know. So she had lied to him and said that I didn't want it, And he really did a solid, man.
Well, he didn't know that you were even a part of the equation.
No, he tore up the contract.
I called him.
Oh, you did? What's his name again?
I can't remember.
Damn it. He deserves credit.
Well, somebody knew him. Juan, maybe.
Tom?
Maybe Juan maybe Juan knew who he was.
Yeah.
Juan gave me his number. And I kind of called him fucking hot.
Oh, yeah.
And then instantly he was chill.
Yeah.
And so instantly I went back to being chill, and we had a great conversation. He goes, hey man, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah. He tore up the contract.
He said, hey man, I'm going to call Mimi right now and tell her that I don't want to get in the middle of this.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy.
Dude, Mimi hated me by the end. And it wasn't because I was doing anything wrong. It's that she wanted more money. She wanted more money than what Dave and I had agreed upon. Yeah. And it wasn't even money she earned. It was free money. And so she was, dude, I heard she called somebody like the night before and was like, you give me $1,000 more than Tim, you can have it. That type of shit. And they were like, dude, sell it to Tim. So I know this though. I know she was calling around and thinking, so I think she thought I was strong arming people. I was calling them being like, you better you better not buy this place, that type of thing. And it was really, I don't think she could understand how close all of us are and how all of us want.
And that's what I said to her. I said, the tattoo community is small. And Eric's friends are vast in this small community. And I said the right thing needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm happy it worked out.
Yeah.
It worked out great. But the problem is, I was here for many, many years. Eric's father was here every goddamn day.
Yeah.
Eric's aunt, Eric's mother, Eric's sister never walked in the fucking door.
Yeah.
They didn't come here. They didn't care about tattooing.
Well,
they didn't care about nothing.
I wasn't here for that. So
but you know what I mean? None of
those
those people cared about tattooing. But as soon as Eric died, they wanted the money.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Eric didn't have a will. So here's what I'm going to say to everybody. Get a fucking will.
I don't have a will. I have a trust, a whole trust with a will attached, in what everyone knows they want me to do with everything. But so here's the thing too. This is a funny story. You know David, the judge?
What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Legacy Ink, the finest in tattoo pigments. I have been using this ink exclusively for over 20 years myself. It has been recently rebranded and marketed, but it has been the same recipe for decades. Real, hand-mixed tattoo pigments that heal great and last. People always comment on the yellow that I use and the yellow tattooed on me. My favorite, the Mayan yellow. I have seen countless 20-plus-year-old tattoos with the colors still vivid. Don't fuck around with all these newfangled companies with their watered-down baloney. Get the tried, true, and tested good shit. You can find them on Instagram at Legacy Pigments or email Ashley today to place an order at legacyartsupplies@gmail.com. Tell them Oliver sent you and receive a special discount. Don't just do tattoos. Be a part of a legacy. I don't know him personally, but I've heard this story. I don't know if I've heard this story, but I've heard of him. Oh, yeah.
So she was, when Mimi was like not trusting me, didn't, wanted more money for it and was calling around trying to sell it. She called David, I heard, and she said, I don't trust this Tim guy, blah, 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 this whole thing. And unbeknownst to her, she didn't know, but David goes, well, Mimi, I've known Tim for a very long time. And he has nothing but a reputation of being honest, and and kind of gave her the rundown and said, I think you should just sell it to Tim. And I think that might have been, one of the, also with you talking to her and maybe Chummy. I think Chummy was influential, but I think that's when she was like, she just threw in the towel and was like, I'll sell it to Tim, And
I think they had a deal. There's a deal in place.
Yeah, and she did take all of Eric's flash. This wall right behind us right here, this was all Eric's flash, this whole wall. And she took the flash, and I think it's because Dave, so here's what happened. Dave thought that he was going to make millions of dollars selling the designs on that like Ed Hardy.
Yeah.
And so he told the lawyer that. The lawyer goes, Mimi, all that flash is worth millions, that type of thing. So she took the flash. And so that's the only thing, man, I would love to get that flash back.
But there's nobody,
I told her?
Nobody in the world would pay more money for that flash than me and you.
I know.
So it's not worth millions.
I know. And she could just sell it. I don't know where it is. I hope she didn't sell it to someone else and they're sitting on it because they know if they bought it from her, that they know that they shouldn't be owning that shit and it should be right here. This is the first time I've been able to actually say this.
Yeah. Who knows?
Publicly to everyone who can possibly, hear this. But if you do know a way of getting that back, or if she does still have it, I've tried to get a hold of her to buy it back. I would love to buy that flashback and put it up in here. But in the meantime, I do have a couple of Rollo sheets, some Good Time Charlie originals right there. This one that I found rolled up in the back, one of his first prints of that Good Time Charlie sheet. I have a Tahiti Felix, this trunk traveling tattooer out of the East Coast. Those are all his. Those were going on eBay for next to nothing because they're so ugly and hacked up, but man, they're cool. That's the beauty of it.
It's the same old designs.
Yeah, it's the same old designs.
Yeah.
So I definitely have some cool stuff on this wall, but it would be a beautiful thing to one day have Eric's original flash back up on this wall.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. You know what I even said too? I said, I will buy the flash and sign away the rights for for like public use. Like if she still thinks she can make millions of dollars selling them for clothing designs, you can have those rights. I'll even sign away the rights. The tattoo, the flash, that's all I want. I just think that it's the right thing to do is to have it up in the shop, you know? But
because they tried to do a brand. They tried to have Eric Muskie phone covers, and
yeah, they're still selling on eBay.
I mean, I'm sure they're hot sellers.
Yeah. Yeah. We do have some originals though. You know that door right there, that door was open the whole time. And so it pressed against that bend around wall and they didn't see that huge sheet of flash of all the pinups there. And then Juan Puente, he gave me a sheet and was like, here, man, just, I don't know, permanent loan. Just
permanent loan.
Yeah. Put it up in the shop. And he said that Eric put that in a convention for like best traditional. And then I think like this new school traditional sheet won over his, and he was all pissed off about it. And he was like, you can have the sheet. You know, he like gave it to Juan. And so Juan gave it to me, and I put it up in the shop, and it sits right next to some, I think those are Phil Sim sheets over there.
Very cool.
Yeah. But just, you know what, if you're really watching this and you want to come in and you want to look at the flash, I don't even mind when people take snapshots. You know what I mean? I'm not all weird about it. Like, don't take photos. You know, if people are coming in and they're taking photos so they can get tattooed down the street, when an artist comes in and they're taking photos because they want to show their artist buddy and be like, look at this old Burt Grimm sheet. This is the original one.
That's cool.
Of you know what I mean? The girls with the heart and the diamond on it. I'm like, that's an original Burt Grimm with that one. And they're like, what the fuck? You know, if you're an artist, you're a tattooer and you want to come in and wander around, when tattooers come in, they're like, hey, I'm from, you know, Minnesota and I tattoo, or I'm from Florida. I just was in the area. I want to stop by. I'm like, dude, come back. And I give them a little tour, or if I'm not here, the guys know, they've heard it told so many times, like Isaac or Javier, they'll no joke give a whole tour of the shop and tell them all stories about, pick some sheets, tell them stories about it. You guys are welcome to do that, because I love, you know, this, I'm not trying to own this in a sense where I don't want people to, you know, like, it's,
I'm not trying to lock it up and hide it.
I'm not trying to gatekeep it that hard. I want people to enjoy, you know, the two original Leroy Mignol back pieces up there that Milton Zeiss sold in his catalog. And, you know, it's just like, these are incredible things, pieces of history. So come in and enjoy it and take a few photos.
Well, I know that this is definitely a stopping point for people that come to California. Tattooers that come out here, they want to stop by classes and check it out.
And I'm beyond grateful and honored when they do. It's very humbling. It's very like, it makes me feel so much gratitude when people do stop by and check out the place. It's fucking awesome.
It's cool.
You know, your shops was one of the first places that I went to when I tattooed in Deep Ellum when I was like in my early 20s. You weren't there though. I think you were on a trip. But
I'm on a lot of trips.
I know. Eric Inclan was like, I'm going to show you got to go see these shops, you know? And he took me over to your place. And I remember being like, man, there's a lot of stuff in here. Well, that is a lot of dice.
We like stuff.
In one station. Yeah.
We like stuff.
It's still there. I mean, there's stuff everywhere.
It's not as well dusted.
No, it's not. And I remember the last time I was in the shop, because you always told me your dog, you were going to have him stuffed when he died. And I thought you were joking. And then I went in the shop and I went to pet your dog, and he was taxidermy.
There he is.
Just nice and just peaceful.
Chilling
there. Yeah, chilling.
Tex. He was a wonderful dog.
Yeah, but I love your shop, man. It's got a ton of history, and it's one of my favorite places that I ever tattooed at.
It's definitely one of my favorite places, and I've tried to cultivate that kind of place where guest artists come all the time, and you know, it's open door, revolving door for artists to come and work and come check out, and for people to, you know, it's that's what I kind of learned that vibe. Yeah. You know, from coming to work at Classic.
And you got a fucking epic crew right now too.
We got a great crew.
Yeah.
We got a great crew. Everybody's killing it. And, you know, the neighborhood, people are always, you know, talking about what's happening with Deep Ellum. It's ups, it's downs, or whatever. I'm like, dude, the neighborhood comes and goes.
It does.
You know?
It went through a real bad time, right? Where it was like a ghost town.
We went through 5 bad times in the last 30 years. You know what I mean?
It happened.
So, the neighborhood goes up and down. But, you know, we're just there. there's been times when the neighborhood is the deadest and we're the busiest.
Yeah.
And then the time when the neighborhood is the busiest and we're the deadest, because the more busy the neighborhood is, the more congested things are, the less people want to drive down to Deep Ellum Park and try to make their way in.
Yeah.
So when
I tattooed out there in the mid 90s and it was so crazy. Or maybe it was 1998.
And the sidewalks are like the line at Disneyland, dude.
Dude, it was crazy. There was one point where Eric goes, "That's it. We're closed. Everyone get out." And he pushed it must have been 30 people all crowded in there out the door because it started to turn into a party in his lobby. He pushed them all out and he pretended to lock it and he waited and he just kind of looked around and then he opened the doors back up and it was like a restart on the night. And then people just started walking in again. And
reboot.
A reboot. And everyone, and everyone was doing walk-ins again. And it was wild. That was a wild time of Deep Ellum.
Yeah, there was 7 tattoo shops in a 2-block area. Yeah. And they were all busy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Good times.
Oh, man, the best of times. It's funny you say you came to Elm Street and I wasn't there. That's what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
Oh, you're never there. I'm like, I'm there a lot.
Yeah.
I'm there half the time.
I did meet Mike Wilson for the first time on that trip out there, and it was really cool. And then he got that whole Fox, I think it was, or by Richard Stell.
Oh, yeah.
And then I saw him in the airport. I saw him at the airport in LAX. We had the same flight to LAX. And it was funny because my mom picked me up from the airport and I hadn't felt not that I was embarrassed that my mom picked me up, but I'm like, man, I'm meeting this really cool, tattooer. He's such a badass tattooer. And my mom's picking me up right now from the airport. But I saw him in the airport and he was just dripping sweat because of just he said his whole body felt like it was on fire from getting tattooed. It's such a huge tattoo. And he just looked bummed, man. He looked tired, defeated, and just ugh. One of those times you do not want to fly.
Dude, so many times.
But he was really nice to me.
I would go on a trip, get tattooed, and be on the plane home with some big ass tattoo all wrapped up in saran wrap, just in there, just sitting in the suite, just sweating, pool of limp everywhere,
dreading to go to the restroom in the airplane. You're like, I'm gonna get fucking staff in here or something.
We came, me and Eric Mosky and a few people. We drove from here to San Francisco. I got both ass cheeks tattooed from Juan Puente at 222, and then rode back in the car back here. Got done tattooing, got in the car and drove back 6 hours, sitting in the seat with just my saran wrap mini skirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just underneath my pants, and I'm just slipping around. It's burning and sweating, and I'm hurting. And then I get the next morning, fly home. This was a bad idea.
I couldn't do that now.
If you're gonna get your ass tattooed, get it in your hometown.
Yeah. Seriously, I couldn't do it now. I don't even have time to get tattooed anymore. Who has time?
You got a lot of spots.
Dude, I do. I don't have time. Who's got time to sit down for 3 hours and get tattooed?
I'm gonna tell you what Ernie Gosnell told me when I was very young, tattooer. I was getting tattooed a lot, and I was everywhere every week. I was getting a tattoo, and he was like, "You trying to get a bodysuit?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah." And he goes, "Well, you better get it done before you're 40. If you don't finish it, by the time you're 40, you'll never finish it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, you tell you crazy." You know what I mean? But then
you get it now.
Some years went by and it hit me. I was like, dude, getting tattooed is getting worse. The spots that I have left are worse. It's hard. It hurts more the older you get. And I'm like, he was right.
Yeah.
If you're not done by 40, so I went on this mission and I got done by, I think I was 41 when I finally got the last little bits filled up.
You could be like Damian Kane and get 3 bodysuits by the time you're 40.
Yeah. You got to get your first one in prison to do that though.
Yeah. He's an animal, dude.
Fucking shout out to pig children.
Yeah. There you go. Damien's a machine. I don't know how he did that. This guy would get, for those of you who don't know who Damian Kane is.
His name is Damon.
Well, to you, it's Damon. But he's just an incredible human being. He's one of my best friends, one of Scott Sylvia's best friends. But he actually apprenticed for a little while under Chris Garver at True, and he was the helper at True Tattoo.
I was there.
Yeah. And he would get a whole sleeve. It was all black and gray, so it was easier to get rid of. He would get a whole sleeve lasered and then just get a whole new sleeve
Covered up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he would go over everything twice, make it darker, make it this way. And I mean, it was crazy. I must have worked on him once a week for years.
Yeah, I remember.
Years.
I will say this is an interesting story. Chris Garver,
Yeah.
one of the undeniably best tattooers in the world.
He's my favorite tattooer.
We had this whole debate at True Tattoo about learning to tattoo. And everybody's like, oh, well, you're the best artist in the world, blah, blah, blah. And he said, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
He goes, it doesn't matter if you're a good artist. Anyone could learn to be a tattooer technically and be a tattooer. And there was the debate on either side. No, a better artist is going to be a better tattooer. He's like, no, a better tattooer is just learn the mechanics, learn the tattooing. And then if you're an artist, you can add your own art. If you're not an artist, you can just, there's plenty of art already available that you can just technically provide. So he decided to teach Damon how to tattoo, and Damon was not an artist. And so it was this, he's like,
but Damien's mechanically inclined.
But he tried to teach him to tattoo. And I don't remember what the timeline was, but about a year maybe, Chris Garver said, you guys are right. I was wrong. Not everybody can learn to tattoo.
You know what, though? I still disagree with it because, so take my apprentices, for example.
Yeah.
Like, Brian is an artist. Like, Brian can paint, Brian can draw. So he's an artist. But Brian, he beat out everyone with hard work. Brian worked for you for 5 years.
Oh, Brian.
He is one of the hardest working dudes.
Damon is one of the hardest working dudes.
He is. Damien is too. But then you take someone like Isaac. So Isaac worked here. He was a helper. He was one of my mom's students across the street.
So you're saying Isaac sucks is what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that. Listen. So Isaac went to school
Brian's
across the street.
amazing. Isaac's not.
Isaac went to school across the street. He was my mom's student. That's how I knew who he was.
Went to school.
Yeah, he went to
What a
high
loser.
school. He finished high school, but he came in and he said, "Hey, can I get a job sweeping up floors or whatever?" We knew him. He had come in a couple times, got tattooed, and I needed a helper at the time, so I was like, "Okay." And man, that dude worked hard. He worked fucking hard. He was a helper for 5 years, and we all were just like, "Isaac, just learn how to tattoo." I mean, when people are telling you and. He wanted to go a route of like a real job. He wanted, medical, a retirement pension, all that stuff. And he was going to go that route. I think so too. But I respect it. I respect everyone's wishes. And I was like, okay. And then one day he asked, he goes, hey, if the offer, this is what he said. So he tells me, I knew he was going to quit eventually because he was going to go, train for this new job. And he goes, hey, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, fuck, that's it, huh? I'm losing you. I'm losing one of the best helpers I ever had in my life. And he goes, just listen to me. And I'm like, okay. He's all, I've talked to my mom about it, or I've talked to my parents about it. I've talked to my girlfriend about it. He's all, and I go, I get it, dude. I'm not going to try to talk you out of your decision, and he's all, if the offer's still on the table, I'd like to learn how to tattoo. And I was like, what? Well, bro, you don't get medical, you don't get dental, you don't get pension, no retirements, no 401k, none of that shit. You got to do it all on your own. Are you sure you want to do this? And he was like, it was a good answer. He goes, I've seen it provide for you and your family, for John and his family, and I'm happy here. And if you guys can provide for your families, then I can provide, I can make a living out of this. I'd rather be where I'm happy. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I got kind of emotional. I got a little emotional. I was like, all right, we'll talk about this later. I'll be right back. And I went and I did my tattoo. And then I talked to him. I said, do you want to be my apprentice or do you want to be the shop apprentice? And he said, well, I've seen how it worked out for other people being the shop apprentice. They had 8 bosses. I'd rather just be your apprentice. And I said, okay. And this kid did not know how to draw. Okay. He didn't come from some, this crazy artistic family like I did, where my dad was an artist. My mom even knew how to draw, he didn't come from that. So, but he was very mechanically inclined. He worked for a fabricating shop, and I go, hey, you can learn how to draw. And man, this kid is like a prodigy. Have you seen his tattoos?
Oh, yeah.
He's killing it. He's doing tattoos that took me like 10, 15 years to do in 2 years.
We talk about this all the time. The learning curve is shortened.
Yes.
Like to learn 30 years ago, it took 5 years to do a decent tattoo.
Totally.
Today, it takes 1 year to be good at tattooing.
Yes. And he was also learning at the same time Natasha was learning, she's also just a talented, gifted artist and tattooer. You know, like Natasha can airbrush a beautiful painting, can you a huge mural on a wall, and then also do an incredible, meticulous tattoo. Like she's just, she's a prodigy as well. So he says he wasn't doing it. I'm like, don't compare yourself to Natasha. You're both learning at the same time. He's like, no, I'm not, but you have to a little bit. I knew he was a little bit. So this bar was set so high that he had to rise to the challenge, and he did, man. And you know what? Motherfucker still hates to draw. He'll tell you straight up. He's like, I hate drawing for my appointment, because it's hard. It takes a lot of work, and it takes everything out of you to get that part of the brain to work right. And, they can't do it like how we do it. We've been doing it for, 30 plus years. That we can just be like, oh, I'll draw a tiger head, no problem. Or I use an old one and redraw it. Or I got a couple right here I've already drawn. Or like, we can actually draw stuff because it's this muscle memory, so it's on repeat. We can just do it like that. I can draw you a rose. I could probably just not even draw it on. I'll just tattoo the rose on, but it's because I've done 10,000 roses. So he's still in that stage where it's like, he really has to work for that drawing. And he's very hard on himself, so he makes sure it comes out good. Brian's the same way. Brian has, he fucking works for it, and he works hard on all his drawings and all his pieces, and, they're both fucking hard workers.
Well, that's what it takes.
Yeah. I don't give a shit how good you are of an artist. I will not teach you how to tattoo.
Talent does help. Talent helps after you've learned to tattoo.
Yeah.
And so what I tell young people, I tell them all the time, young tattooers, I was like, stop doing your own shit.
Yeah.
Until you know how to tattoo. Like learn to tattoo first.
Yeah.
That
will come naturally. You just keep repeating designs and, kind of redrawing, old original designs. It's like your style will develop naturally. Every person's style develops naturally. Don't force it. Just let it kind of develop naturally, and it will develop into your own style. And that's why I can point across the room and be like, hey, did Oliver do that tattoo? And you could probably do it with one of mine. And that's one of my biggest accomplishments. If I can do a tattoo and another tattooer can be like, hey, did Tim Hendricks do that tattoo?
Yeah.
That's it, dude. I don't need any more than that.
I was tattooing a dude a couple days ago, right before we left town. And, he had a tattoo on his shoulder that Josh Williams did.
Yeah.
And I was tattooing right below it. And somebody at the shop comes up and is like, oh, Williams do that eagle? And he goes, how'd you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so then it sparked this conversation between me and the guy. And I was like, oh, well, we can tell. We worked with Josh for years. We know, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, that's crazy. You would just recognize that someone did it by looking at it. And then,
dude, I tattooed a guy the other day.
Unpromptedly, another person comes over, goes, oh, Josh did that eagle. And he's like, oh, did they tell you to say that? He's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, no, whatever. And I was like, and then, that happens.
Dude, the exact same thing happened the other day. I was tattooing my client. He came in, we did a walk-in day. And I fit the Playboy Bunny, the Sailor Jerry Playboy Bunny pinup, but I did in black and gray, which is cool. I love doing traditional in black and gray. And I did it between these tattoos. And I saw the tattoos, and it was obvious Wanter did the tattoos. Like, there's no doubt. Like, I didn't even have to ask. And I was asking him, but I did ask one. I was like, who did this? Because I was suspicious on who did it, And he told me. And then he's like, and then Wanter did this one. And I honestly just went like this. Yeah, I know. I didn't like. And then he goes, it's so cool how you guys can just point each other's tattoos out. And I'm like, yeah. He's all, one did this one too. I'm all, yeah. I know. Like, of course he did. Like, it's fucking amazing. Like, I can see Wanter's. And then someone unprompted came over and was like, do Juan do that one? And he's like, yeah, he did that one. And I just laughed.
I love it when somebody's like, if you see a tat and somebody is just like, oh, somebody's trying to be Chris Garver right there. You could tell, you can see the influence of Chris Garver without the application of Chris Garver.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, they wanted to be, they're trying.
Yeah.
Maybe someday. But
I mean, it's a lot of influence in my Japanese when I do big Japanese stuff as Chris Garver, because I worked with him. That's where I learned how to do Japanese stuff from. I was constantly, dude, he would draw stuff too and throw it in the trash.
Oh, I
And
have
I'd casually walk over.
I have a
pull
lot
it-
of things
Yeah, and pull it out of the trash.
that I'd pulled out of the trash at True Tattoo. And when we moved True from the one location to the next,
Yeah.
there was so much
Oh, I bet.
Chris
dude.
Garver drawings and even some paintings
Yeah.
that were left.
I know.
And I gathered them all up and I said, hey.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't care about those. And I was like, sweet. I kept them.
He's the ultimate tattooer, bro.
But when
he's
we-
the ultimate artist tattooer. Like, he doesn't do it for any other reason because it's just what he does. He's just
Well, when we
You know
worked
what I
at
mean?
when we worked at True together,
Yeah.
for the other location, and working with Garver every day, it was just watching him draw on paper, watching him draw on skin, watching him just do a Sharpie line on somebody's skin and just start tattooing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Everybody there was lucky to be a part of that.
He's amazing, dude.
Everybody in that shop is affected the rest of their life
Yeah.
and their career by being able to work next to Chris Garver.
Yeah. And if
for
you
those-
aren't, you failed.
no, everybody I know, Nick Roden, Tom
Yeah.
Mosier, you, me,
Yeah.
everybody that worked there during that time, Daniel Brigo, everybody, like, that's part of their upbringing, tattooing.
Yeah.
That is an indelible mark on our.
I mean, even Brandy Collins. Remember Brandy?
Oh, yeah.
Works at Tattoo Land. She worked there for a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
She worked, at True. Man, that was such a great time.
It was good. I mean, working there before Clay totally spun out.
Yeah.
He was on the spin, but he hadn't spun all the way out.
Yeah.
He was good. And him and Chris together when they were buddies was awesome.
Yeah. There was a great time there. There was a point in time, these moments of my career where I'm like, man, this is a really big moment for me in my career. And there's just this perfect time when everything aligns, all the stars align, that's where the expression comes from. And I felt that at most of the shops that I worked at, but a huge one was True. Another huge one was Spotlight, when I worked there, and Juan and I were traveling all over and tattooing, and he was getting me into all these conventions and introducing me to people. And then Miami Ink was just a good time. There was just this moment that it was spectacular. And I hope that I'm creating that for tattooers here.
Well,
You know what I mean? Because
you are.
it is for me.
You definitely
but
are.
I hope that they look back and they're like, man, that was a spectacular time of my career, was working at Classic Tattoo,
I think that's what you've definitely cultivated here. And to speak about Spotlight, man, what a great place. Sad that Bob is gone, but the shop is killer. Yeah. The shop's still killer. Charlie is.
And they're going through a great time right now.
Charlie's doing great right now. The
Yeah.
people that are working there, you got Juan Taylor, who's one of the best working there. You've got, it's a wonderful place right now.
Yeah, they have an incredible lineup.
And we just spent last month. We were there. David Nash, one of the guys who worked for me, was with him, and got a tattoo from Steve Bolts while we were there. It's super cool to see Steve there, and the shop is just. I mean, I'm so glad to see that shop thriving right now.
Yeah, me too.
Great
man.
place, and that's another one on the list. I told this story a million times. First time I ever came to California.
Yeah,
Eric Mosky picked me up at the airport, and we drove straight from the
Spotlight.
airport to Spotlight Tattoo.
Yeah,
He goes, you come to California, you go to Spotlight Tattoo.
yeah.
I don't know if Bob will be there or not, but we're going to go there.
Dude,
We walked in, Bob was there.
When I first worked there, Chris Kahn was still there. So it was Chris Kahn, Juan Puente, Baby Ray, Charlie Roberts, Bob Roberts, Steve Serrazio, this guy named Jacob. He was really nice. He kind of moonlighted in between that and another spot. Did I say Juan Puente? Brian Burke, Marco Ceratelli. Bro, I remember
Had him working in shifts.
and I had imposter syndrome. Dude, I was like, do I belong here? This is crazy. This is like a crazy lineup. And I remember just feeling like, I think I finally made it. Like this is like the pinnacle of my whole tattoo career, is working here at Spotlight and working around these people. I mean, Bob was still fucking working on back pieces, and dude, it was awesome. That was a good time.
Oh, amazing.
I mean, my appointment's going to be here in 10 minutes. Should we wrap it up?
Well, like I said, we might have to do a part 2.
I mean, sure.
So I hope everybody enjoyed part 1 of Tim Hendricks and Classic Tattoo. But yeah, we can tidy this thing up, man. I really appreciate you coming on here and talking some shit. And I also, want to say thanks again for, keeping this place alive. I'm stoked. I'm tattooing here today.
Yeah.
So that's going to be great.
Tattooing today.
My buddy Greg Christian is going to be here tattooing today.
Greg's going to be here. Hey, thank you for wanting to talk to me and ask me about all this, and thank you to everyone who ever got tattooed here and helped this place keep it what it is. And thank you for being so influential on keeping the Classic Tattoo alive and it going and to where we are now. Because
I said it.
I wouldn't be able to do this without all the help from all the friends I had. Chuco, when Chuco came here, was so influential. So thank you to everybody who contributed a piece to keep this place going and keep the magic alive.
Well, I say it all the time. This is definitely one of my favorite places. Classic Tattoo. Not just favorite tattoo shops, but favorite places. And I gotta, just to say, when I first came here, Shane Trulin was here, Chummy was here, Juan Puente was here, Mike Brown was here, Charlie was still here, Eric was here. All the people that were influential on me just barely starting out. I met Eric because he was traveling. He brought me here, and then I met Juan. Then I met Scott. Then I met Freddie. Then I met, I met Jeff Rasher, met everybody. This room right here is my doorway to everything that made the next 30 years of my life.
Yeah. Well, I like to think that it's still doing that for people.
It is 100% still doing it. So,
all right.
Next time,
to be continued.
Next time we'll do more.
All right.
I love you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Too. All right. Bye.
Hey, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Come on, guys. Click all those links. Push all those buttons because it really helps us out and gets us out there to more and more peeps. What in the Duck podcast is produced by Audra Cabral and John.com Niederkorn. Our sound, video engineer, and editor is Courtney, Junior Larkins. Initial audio video setup and intro music by Blake Balake Pinchon. And a big thanks to everyone that submitted questions. Y'all keep them coming. Email me any questions you would like me to answer to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on What in the Duck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Label Solutions. www.labelsolutionsinc.com. I've been a customer of theirs for over a decade. They make the highest quality premium labels for all kinds of products. Food and beverage, personal care products, pet care products, beer and wine spirits, CBD products, automotive products, and more. They can make a label for almost anything. Multicolor, custom die cut, full wraparound labels, too many options to even tell you about. I use Label Solutions for all the stickers and labels for my stuff, like the Tiki Loco label on the coffee I'm drinking right now. They do have a minimum order of 1,000 labels, so they won't make you 20 labels for that soap you're making in your bathtub. But if you've got products to label, you need Label Solutions. Get started today at www.labelsolutionsinc.com.